first wave, I rode it all the way to the beach. That was it. Straight in. Didn't care. I didn't know how to turn. I stood up and rode it straight all the way, and that was it. I was hooked from that day forward. My first board I owned was a 9.6 Hobie. When surfing first started in Ocean City, before there was an actual surf shop, there was a couple guys that had brought boards to the area and they rented them out. And that's where I first got introduced to it, was renting a board and got hooked on it. And then the next season, the Eastern Surfer opened under the Sandy Hill Motel. Paul's Tackle Shop opened. They were downtown. It was a dive shop, tackle shop, surfboard shop. Even Bolden's Marina at 54th Street had Owens pop-out surfboards, these big old things. Arnold Rhodes in Fenwick, who had the 5 and 10, had surfboards. The Shack was in Fenwick. Bobby Steele had an old shack. He had a pet raccoon. He sold surfboards way back in the 60s. Back in the early days, you had the Eastern Surfer, you had Spider Wright, who had the Weber shop, and then you had a couple other shops. And as the sport evolved and people saw, I guess, the money end of the business of surfing, Enterprise 2, which was Jimmy Finnegan, opened a little store up downtown by the Ice House. And that was the original Sunshine House, which became very popular, probably the biggest shop in the area. And then the clothing part got into the surfing industry. Clothing really got big. Spider Wright had a clothing store. Frank Gunyon, who has South Moon Under now, he had one of the original clothing stores, surf shops. He had surfboards in it. He had Bob White. Dale Schall opened Sundance Brotherhood, and he and I were always good friends. I traded him a case of wax the first year he opened for a puppy, so he could have wax in his surf shop. And gosh, he probably opened in 1971, something like that, downtown. Yeah, it was a very good shop. He did a lot of business there. Dave Dockowitz opened up his shop there, Ocean Atlantic. I worked as a lifeguard and worked around the beach at different things, and I hung out at the surf shop and hung out at the rental trailer. So the year after George Pittman sold the Eastern Surfer to Walt Austin, I started working there. So that introduced me into the surfing business. And then I was fortunate enough to leave here, because I grew up in this area in Salisbury, and we spent our summers in Ocean City, to go to Florida to college. So I could surf year-round, and I met a lot of people that were really into surfing. And then the year I graduated from college, I moved up here and opened Clear Light Surf Shop in Fenwick in 1969. Well, back then, there wasn't much in Fenwick. I met this guy from California, Jim Oberlin Surfboards, and I decided to do the shop. He said, sure, I'll make you all the boards you want. And back in those days, 69, you could open a business for a couple $1,000s. It wasn't like today. I mean, the surfing shops have changed so much. We had trunks, t-shirts, surfboards, a couple wetsuits. We didn't even have leashes back then. I mean, today surfing is so mainstream. There's so much clothing industry, and it's gone through a lot of changes. And I'd go out there every winter and stay with them in California and surf all winter. And then, because this town basically back then was a seasonal town. It closed up in the winter. You could try to stay open, but so it gave me the opportunity when I was young to travel every winter. I'd go to Puerto Rico, California, Hawaii, wherever, and then come back in the spring and run the surf shop again. We were kind of like the young pioneers in the shortboard thing. I had been on the Hobie team in Ocean City and met these guys that came out here one year from California, from Jim Oberlin Surfboards, and they had all these short radical surfboards, and I went on a tour with them up and down the East Coast. Went to all these shops and contests, and I started riding their boards. Well, when we opened our shop, we were the first ones that had these really radical surfboards. But I was competing against the Hobie shop who I'd worked for, and I think we kind of put him out of business. He wasn't up on the surfing and modern things like we were, because we traveled a lot in the winter, went to California and places. Well, back then, you could surf anywhere. Ocean City really ended at like 15th Street. You knew everybody that surfed. We'd go to Indian River, that was a surf safari. You'd wave, everybody you knew. Wasn't any bad vibes. You waved at everybody, it was a good thing. And we had big beach parties at night up where the high-rises are now on the beach, built big bonfires. And it was a lot of fun. One day stands out to me in surfing of all time was one day at Southside Indian River. It was about 6 foot and just these round tubes. We used to surf there all the time. And I had this little 6-foot fish, rocket fish. And that was probably one of the all-time standout days, and that was right here in this area. Over California, everywhere. First time I ever went to Hawaii, I thought that was the best place. But I almost drowned at Sunset Beach. I thought, oh, that looks perfect, paddled out, lost my board, it was going out to sea, some guy saved me. We didn't even have leashes then. Your board went over in the rip, got sucked out to sea. But I'd say the best place probably overall was Puerto Rico. I spent a lot of time there in the winters, and it's a great climate, good waves. Well, I think Ocean City, with what they have to work with, has done a lot with surfers. The Eastern Surfing Association has helped a lot. When you go to a surfing beach, like when we have a surfing contest, people invariably come down the beach. Oh, you're having the beach here today? We can't go to the beach. So it's how you try to make everybody happy, and it's hard. But Ocean City does real well. They have 2 rotating surfing beaches, and they're working on a 3rd, which would be down by the inlet. And I think that would be good, because surfing has gotten so popular. There's so many beginners now. Older people, younger people, women, children, which is great. The main fear thing probably is getting hit by someone's board. Now there's so many people in the water that don't know what they're doing. And and nobody explains to them the etiquette of surfing. The other day a guy kept dropping in on everybody. I paddled over to him and told him what the rules were. He said, nobody ever told me that. And my son got pinned in the back, cut through his wetsuit. Luckily he had a wetsuit on by a longboard about a month ago at the surfing beach. And the surfing beaches are dangerous. There's so many people. I started off longboarding, then I probably didn't longboard for, gosh, 20-some years. And then with these new longboards, I got on one. And wow, this is neat. It's a lot better than the old heavy ones I remember. You know, you went from 25-pound longboard to a 15-pound one. That's a big difference. I had kind of lost interest in surfing, and my kids, when I got out of the surfboard business, got into real estate, they all got me back into it, and I'm into it as much as ever now. Mainly because the kids too. We all go together and we have a great time. It's good for everybody.